In a small African village by the river, a young woman named Abeni lived a simple yet challenging life. She was a bright and kind-hearted girl, struggling to complete her education while working at the local market. Despite her hardships, she always wore a warm smile and believed that kindness could change the world. One evening, as she walked home, she noticed a weary fisherman sitting alone under a baobab tree. His clothes were torn, his hands rough, and his eyes carried a sorrowful depth. He looked like someone who had seen too much of life's cruelty. Feeling pity, Abeni offered him the little food she had. "You don't have to do this," the fisherman said softly. "I want to," Abeni replied. "No one should go to bed hungry." The fisherman, who introduced himself as Jengo, thanked her and accepted the food. From that day forward, they met often. Jengo was different. He spoke with wisdom, carried himself with quiet dignity, and had an air of mystery around him. Despite his poverty, Abeni found herself drawn to him. He wasn't just another struggling man. There was something about him that felt grand. What Abeni didn't know was that Jengo was no ordinary fisherman. He was, in fact, Prince Jabari, the only heir to the great Kingdom of Zawadi. Years ago, his father, the king, had warned him that wealth could blind a man to the truth. To understand the real struggles of his people, Jabari had left the palace, disguised as a commoner. He wanted to experience life beyond the golden gates, to see who would value him not for his crown, but for his heart. Over time, Jabari realized that Abeni was the one person who treated him with genuine kindness, expecting nothing in return. While others looked down on him, she offered him friendship and respect. And as days passed, that friendship turned into something deeper. But Jengo Prince Jabari knew he couldn't keep the truth hidden forever. One evening, as the golden sun painted the sky, Jengo turned to Abeni and asked, "If I were not a poor fisherman, would you still care for me?" Abeni smiled. "Who you are does not matter to me. What matters is the kindness in your heart." Jengo's heart ached with emotion. He had found the answer he was searching for. But before he could reveal his truth, fate intervened. Back in the Kingdom of Zawadi, the king had grown weary of waiting. His advisors had finally tracked down the prince's whereabouts. A royal carriage, guarded by soldiers, arrived at the village, causing a great stir. Abeni watched in shock as Jengo was suddenly surrounded by royal guards. And then, to her disbelief, the people bowed before him. The man she thought was a fisherman was in fact the lost Prince of Zawadi. She took a step back, her world spinning. "You lied to me," she whispered, feeling betrayed. "I never lied," Jengo Prince Jabari said gently. "I just wasn't ready to tell the truth." Abeni turned away, confused and heartbroken. Could she trust him? Could she love someone whose entire identity had been a secret? Days passed, and Abeni tried to forget him. But deep down, she knew her heart had already made its choice. One morning, a royal messenger arrived at her home with an invitation to the royal palace. Nervously, she entered the grand hall, where Prince Jabari stood, dressed in gold and royal robes. But when he saw her, he removed his crown and stepped forward, just as the simple fisherman she had met under the baobab tree. "Abeni," he said, "I may be a prince, but I am still the same man you met by the river. And I love you, not as a prince, but as the man whose heart you've touched." Tears filled Abeni's eyes. At that moment, she realized that titles and wealth meant nothing. What mattered was the soul behind them. She took his hand, and the entire court gasped in surprise. The king, who had been observing, smiled. "A true ruler is not the one who sits on the throne, but the one who earns the love of his people. And my son, you have found a woman who sees you not for your riches, but for your heart." And so, Abeni, the girl who once struggled to survive, became the future queen of Zawadi. But more than that, she proved that true. Love is never about wealth, it's about the heart that beats beneath it. Moral of the story: love is not about riches, but about the purity of one's heart. True connections are built on kindness, honesty, and trust, not material wealth.